Welcome, welcome. I just finished watching Paper Tigers, and this movie is excellent. This movie, what a joy, what a pleasure. Wow, I never heard of this movie until I caught a trailer of it on YouTube just randomly, and of course, nobody's talking about this movie. It's not a big movie at all, which I guess adds to its charm. This movie's unpretentious, but manages to achieve great heights. This movie is understated. It is subtle, but it's a beautiful thing. Very much like the concept of the thing it's teaching. Its subject matter, which is kung fu and honor. Very humble concepts. Very humble concepts. This is a very humble movie. So I guess that's kind of the spell, the magic trick that this movie pulls. It's very much like what it's about, the subject matter. It's a humble movie about an art form, kung fu, that teaches humility. And this movie does this. Yeah, this is why I think that's the secret sauce of paper tigers. So what makes this movie so damn good? Okay, so there certain different kinds of kung fu movies. There's the epic kung fu movie like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and when folks want to make a kung fu movie, a lot of the times, if they have some money, they go that route. They go with the epic. What's the name of that Jet Li movie? With the wuxia, very big, very glamorous, very fantastic. But it's a Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Hero, stuff like that. So if you have a big budget, that's usually what, the big spectacle. That's what folks would make. And then you have movies like a bunch of Jet Li movies and Tony Leung movies where they're like cops who know how to fight. If you've ever seen the movie I Saw the Devil, this movie is amazing. So urban kung fu movies, basically, you could categorize them as that, urban kung fu movies. And then you have the movies, martial arts movies that are grounded or try to be grounded. A good example of a grounded martial arts movie that takes place in the modern age, in contemporary times, but fails at it, but gets points for trying, is Born a Champion. That movie has a lot of heart, but didn't have much going for it with regard to proper storytelling and good characters. It was just really corny and ham-fisted. Another good example of the modern, grounded, realistic action movie about the modern kung fu artist or the modern martial artist. A great one is Red Belt with Chiwetel Ejiofor, written and directed by David Mamet. Unbelievable movie, just unbelievable. I'll be talking about that sometime. And now there's this, and another one another kind of genre, I guess, would be the UFC fighter kung fu movie, which also features the modern man who knows martial arts, who was probably in the military. And Born a Champion kind of falls into that category. But a movie that does it better is Warrior. Warrior is amazing, full of emotional power, great fight scenes, great familial drama, great stuff. This movie, Paper Tigers, falls in the category of the modern kung fu artist, the modern martial artist in the contemporary world, and how does that affect his life? So it's in the category of Born a Champion and Red Belt, but it's right up there with Red Belt. Yeah, it's right up there with Red Belt. It's way better than Born a Champion, and it's not as epic as Warrior. As I said, it is the grounded martial artist movie, the martial arts movie about the modern man with modern problems. They're divorced, or they have family problems, or they have money problems, or things like that. They're very grounded individuals, but they know this amazing art of kung fu that they can't really. What good is it in the modern world, really, except for self-discipline and humility and using it to live a righteous life, a dignified life. And that's where this movie really, really succeed. And something it does that sets it apart from Red Belt, that makes it stand in its own world, right, on its own level, it's the comedy, the lightheartedness. Oh my God, it does such a great job of balancing, managing to keep humor throughout the movie, even though they are dealing with serious issues. You know, they're dealing with death, they're dealing with a killer kung fu assassin, you know, but it's not corny at all. It's not silly at all. It is so much fun, and it is ingenious the way the writers, the directors, the creators, the actors, you know, the whole cast is amazing. The way they manage to walk this tight rope of comedy and lightheartedness with serious conflict, with serious issues. Unbelievable. There is no scene, no, every scene, every scene, even the scenes where it could be life or death, has humor. And it is not bathos. You know, bathos is where, you know, you could see, you know, a character get killed or, you know, and then something happens right away and it's jarring. You know, that's bathos. Like something comedic happens right away. You know, in Django Unchained, for example, when Django is all dressed up and he's in a slave house, right, in the house of the masters, in Leonardo DiCaprio's house, and he's killing all the people, and it's really satisfying to watch all these slavers get their comeuppance, right? And he kills Leonardo DiCaprio's sister, and he tells, you know, he tells the black maid, he's like, let's call her Cecile, say goodbye to Miss Hampton, and Cecile goes, goodbye, Miss Hampton, and then boom, he blasts Miss Hampton, right? So that's comedy and violence, you know, that happens simultaneously, right? That's bathos. Maybe not the best description or best definition, but I'm sure you understand what I mean. But so that's not, it's not, we're not dealing with a lot of bathos here, right? It's just so well balanced. The humor is intertwined with the conflict. It's one and the same. That's what makes Paper Planes so special. The humor and the drama go hand in hand. They're inseparable. And that is so hard to do. So hard to do. You can see in a lot of like horror movies, like for example, Phantoms with Ben Affleck and Liv Schreiber. You know, a lot of other horror movies where, you know, the tone changes, right? The tone is inconsistent, and as an audience member, you feel the tone change, and it's abrupt, and it's not natural. Paper Tigers doesn't suffer from this at all. Everything feels natural. Everything feels right, right? So that's one of the reasons why Paper Tigers is so amazing. It manages to perfectly mix humor and drama in every scene, everything. And the humor isn't, as I said before, it isn't silly, it isn't campy. It's real. These guys are genuinely funny. The cast is funny, and it truly is a feel good movie. You feel good because you're watching a man with real struggles that you can relate to as a husband, as a father. You know, as I guess you could, not a failure, but you know, a man who doesn't measure up, right? No matter what people say, like I don't believe anybody feels they truly measure up to what they feel they should be in this world, right? So it deals a lot with that, a failure, so to speak, right? So to speak. So this movie is a triumph in that regard. All right. So a brief synopsis of the movie. I'm not going to spoil anything because I really recommend you folks watch this movie. It is amazing. It'll make you feel good. The movie is about a kung fu master who only teaches his secret arts, his kung fu, to only 3 students who the world comes to know as the Three Tigers. But 30 years later, you can see it right here in the trailer. They all become weathered and old and basically abandon their kung fu, like they're not what they used to be. And then they have to come to terms with that and deal with the challenges of being the past generation of kung fu fighters and trying to prove to themselves and the world that they were worthy of being the students of this legendary kung fu master. Legendary kung fu master. and everybody knows who they are because they're the only three students he ever taught, right? So that's the brief synopsis without spoiling anything, and it's amazing. It's executed perfectly. Executed perfectly. The pacing is perfect, and this isn't a movie that has one guy fighting 20 people, kind of like Ip Man or a Bruce Lee movie or a Jet Li movie. No, they managed to maintain audience attention, maintain interest, maintain drama without fisticuffs every 15 minutes or every 10 minutes, right? There is enough fighting, right? And it's the best kind of fighting, and the humor isn't lost in that aspect as well. It's ingrained in every aspect of this movie. So you get what you came for. If you want kung fu, if you want to see good action scenes, you get it. It's here. And as I said, this falls into the genre of the contemporary martial arts master living in a modern world, and the audience then asks, what good is your kung fu? Basically, the concept is all about what good is your kung fu against real world issues, right? The so it really succeeds at being that. The fight scenes are great. I did not think, because watching the style of the movie, watching this fight found footage kind of thing, you know after watching movies like John Wick, that Keanu Reeves had to go through all this training to make it look good. I don't know what training these guys had to go through, but the martial arts scenes in John Wick are highly choreographed, right? And of course these are choreographed as well, but they managed to pull it off. The fight scenes look great. They look real. The fight scenes appear how you expect someone using kung fu in a street fight would appear. Like, that's how the fight scenes appear. They pull it off, and that is something that is very hard to do, because a lot of movies try to make the kung fu look real, right? But it's hard to make kung fu look real because people are doing all these hand waving. Back in the days, they called it finger painting, right? Oh, and they do all of these flourishes, right? So kung fu is pretty silly to watch. It's fun to it's glamorized. It's fun to watch, but it's not very practical. So, and these guys are not dealing with MMA or some kind of mixed martial arts. It's kung fu. It is kung fu, right? So, big props to this movie for managing to pull it off without looking silly at all. It looks badass. It looks excellent. The pacing is great. And as I was saying before, you're not getting 100 fight scenes. It's not an action is part of the movie, but the movie is also about drama. It's about legacy. It's about It's about dignity. It's about standing up for what you believe. So it's equal parts all those things, just as much as it is an action movie, a kung fu fighting movie, right? So don't go in there, watching this movie expecting like, John Wick or something, right? Or like a Jackie Chan movie, right? Like Rumble in the Bronx or whatever. That's not what you're going to get here. What you're going to get here is very thoughtful and so understatedly executed, great drama, great stuff, great comedy, right? So with regard to the pacing, as I was saying, I keep mentioning the pacing. It's just such a good, it's so well paced that people are not going to talk about this movie because it does its job so well. I've said this before in a review. Like, when something is so good, people ignore it because it does its job so well. I said this about the Courier, featuring Benedict Cumberbatch, right? That movie is just so perfect. Like, nobody, whatever. It's just a perfect movie. So what's there to talk about? You can just say it's good, and that's that. And this movie pulls that off. Now, once again, why do I keep bringing up the pacing? So you expect when you go into a movie like this, you get, as I mentioned before, giving the premise, you'll have, okay, these guys are really good when they were younger. Now they're shit, now that they're over in their 30s and older. So it's all about getting back to where they were, the proficient fighters when they were young. But it's not even about that. You don't get this montage in the middle somewhere where they're learning to be as good as they used to be. No, and then they go and fight this big fight. No. This movie takes it up to the wire before you get that. It's just so well paced, Another thing this movie does so well that that keeps you locked in till the very end, and it's something that actually I was talking about this with my friend with regard to Rock Lee versus Gara in Naruto. How that fight is so iconic. Many anime fans know that scene. It's one of the most memorable, even though the most memorable battle in the earlier seasons of Naruto, because Rock Lee he can't stand a chance. The guy just knows martial arts, that's it, but he has no ninjutsu. And meanwhile, Gara is practically a god. So what I'm trying to say is the power of overwhelming odds, where your protagonist has to face overwhelming odds. So as I mentioned before, these guys they're old, so they're not formidable at all. So they are always facing overwhelming odds, and this movie does such a great job of that. Right up until the wire, they are facing overwhelming odds till the very end. So you don't get that release till the movie is over. That is just great pacing. That is great pacing. Without boring you, without filler, without making you feel as though they're just biding their time up until this great big fight where they prove themselves, right? They're facing overwhelming odds and it works. You don't feel like it's dragging out, right? It is great till the very end until that releases it. And you just, and even when they overcome the overwhelming odds, it is just by the skin of their teeth, by the skin of their teeth, right? And which makes the triumph, the success, the winning even sweeter. Way so sweet, because you're like, man, yeah, like, you might be small, you might be broken, you might be old, but that doesn't mean you can't still prevail, right? And this movie does a great job of emphasizing that point right up until the end. So yeah, great tone, great pacing, great cast, and a great lesson in pitting your protagonist against overwhelming, insurmountable odds. Just such a great job. Like, these guys are failing all the time. All the time. As I said, with regard to, very similar to the Rock Lee versus Gara fight. These guys are failing all the time. So they're underdogs till the very end, and everybody loves an underdog. You want the underdog to win, and the underdog does win in this story, of course. Otherwise, it wouldn't be very good, right? Then it'll fall flat. And I was afraid of that. I was actually watching this movie and trying to figure out when it's going to fall on its face. I was like, how long can they keep this up? I was waiting for something crappy to happen. Like, I was waiting for some kind of flaw in the movie structure, in the character structure, in the pacing, or something to happen to completely take me out of it. I was like, oh yeah, for me to be like, there it is. That's the kicker. That's, I'm like, because this would have been too good. But it never happens. It never happens. This movie is amazing from start to finish. It doesn't fail in any aspect. And you can look at, by the way it's shot, it's nothing special. Like, it really is. Once again, as I said earlier on in the video, that is the magic trick this movie pulls. It is so humbly shot, so humbly framed, so humbly directed, so humbly acted, so lighthearted. Meanwhile, it's doing something so amazing, so important, very strong, very subtle, right? Very much like the ethos of Kung Fu, inner strength, right? It's not flashy at all, but it has integrity, it has dignity. Something else this movie does so well, and oh my God, you feel it in your bones while you're watching it, especially if you've watched a lot of Kung Fu movies. Because a big aspect of the Kung Fu action movie genre is the mythos, the legendary nature of Kung Fu, right? That it's linked to the past. It's an old art form. So you feel that when you're watching it. And that can be very hard to portray in a modern setting. Very hard to portray. It's very hard to maintain the ancient DNA of Kung Fu in a modern action kung fu action movie, and this movie, it is ingrained in it. It is in its genes. Watching Paper Tigers, you feel the history of kung fu, the legendary nature, the legendary ancient mythical nature of kung fu, which is very hard to do. Which is very hard to do. You know, as I said before, it's a movie about modern guys who know kung fu, but what good is that, right? So having that situation, that challenge to overcome, but also trying to imbue the movie with the ancient nature, the mythical aspect of kung fu. That's another challenge. But this movie does so well, and I think it does so with the music. The music is a big part of that. It uses some funky music, which makes you think of Enter the Dragon and classic kung fu movies. And when it needs to, it has the flute playing, like traditional Chinese kind of stuff playing. So it does a lot to make you feel that, you know, legendary ancient status that only kung fu can boast, really. So it does a great job with that. And I think another thing, another aspect of the movie that really lends itself to that and helps it express that vibe to the audience is an aspect of the movie, which is, I don't want to spoil it. I really don't want to spoil it. Is all about, you know, all kung fu movies are about, most kung fu movies are about, hey, you kill my master, so I must take revenge. So that's a big aspect of Paper Tigers as well. It does this without being pretentious at all. At all. Because that can be very overbearing, except if it's like in the right setting, right? But having that in the, you know, in a contemporary setting can be hard to make it, it's hard to make it believable, right? Who goes around, you know, trying to avenge their master these days? You know, who has masters these days? You're like all these McDojos, or even like maybe even real kung fu schools. Like, who goes around killing people's masters and who goes around avenging their masters? So it's very hard to have the audience suspend their disbelief and believe like, okay, this is a real situation. But they pull it off here. They pull it off here. It is subtle. It is subtle. It is funny. It is humorous. So it has that going for it as well, which also helps it come across as another great addition to the kung fu mythos, to the legendary status of kung fu movies, right? It really makes you, it ties back to those traditional classic kung fu movies, you know, as I said before, as where the master's killed and the student goes seeking revenge. Like, so this is a kung fu movie trope. It's a kung fu movie trope. And they did it here without being corny, without being overbearing. It is beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. It's also really interesting because I've also watched Wrath of Man. I'm going to be doing a review of that probably after this video. But then I watched this movie, and I didn't hesitate to jump in front of the camera to do a review of this movie first. That's interesting. It goes down so well. It goes down so easy. So tasty. Paper Tigers is so tasty. So good. Such a great watch for the whole family. For the whole family. It is great. Well, there's some curse words and some racial slurs, but nothing that only happens like once, and it's warranted. Yeah, this movie, as I said, Wrath of Man is on the back burner, but I just had to talk about this movie because it's a rarity. It's a rarity to get a movie that, you know, does its job so well and it makes you truly feel good. Wrath of Man is amazing, but that's some heavy shit. Oh my God, that movie is heavy. It's dark. It's dark. But this, you know, once again, great balancing act. Great balancing act. No element of the movie, whether it's the drama, the action, the darker aspects of the movie, none of them, no one element overshadows the other. Everything is equal parts, the same, to make this amazing whole. Really, really amazing. Really, really, really amazing. Now, as I mentioned before, it's not much to look at. Cinematography is not. It's just shot competently. It's shot well, framed well, right? Because these guys are the three tigers. So once again, very subtle. The movie does a great job of always pitting them together, framing them together. Whether two of them are in the foreground and then one of them's in the background, as you see, as you even watching this trailer, you can see that. So it does a great job of visually showing that these guys are brothers, are a team. They're the three tigers, right? And they've been that way for years. So it does a great job of that. And yeah, and also it's so hard to do these movies because what story are you going to tell when you're trying to tackle a modern day kung fu movie? You have to go like the Jackie Chan route. You have to go like the disgruntled super badass cop like Jet Li plays or Tony Leung plays, right? And it's epic, and he's fighting the triad or fighting a gang or something, or what I'm saying, or you go with the kung fu epic. So these movies are very tricky, and Born a Champion is testament to how movies like this can fail, right? So I highly recommend this, and it's a kind of it's a genre of movie, right? So if you like these kind of movies where it takes place in the modern days, and you like martial arts, kung fu, by the way, not just kung fu, the kind of the most, for lack of a better term, the most ridiculous martial art, right? That genre, so we've got Paper Planes, we've got Red Belt. These will be the two I would highly recommend that has this feel of what good is your kung fu in a modern day. It's as though that's what the movie is asking. That's what the concept is trying to prove. So it's very hard to pull that story off successfully. It's very hard, because no matter what you do, it's easy for that concept to fall on his face, for the hero to just become a Superman, right, and an invincible person, which defeats the whole purpose of a modern kung fu master, a modern martial artist, right? Living in this world, but still having those skills. What are they going to do? How are they going to put those skills to proper use? Like, how useful is that in a modern day, basically, right? And this movie kills it from start to finish. Puts a smile on your face. I laughed out loud quite a few times, and yeah, it's really great. I highly recommend it. Paper Planes, if you have seen it. Paper Planes, Paper Tigers, if you have seen it, let me know what you thought about it down in the comments below. Let's share this video. People need to know about this movie. Let's give this movie the props it deserves. Everything is usually very serious, except if you're making a straight up comedy. But when you're working on a martial arts movie, it's not. It never has this kind of tone. So let's give this movie the props it deserves by sharing this video, liking this video. Let's talk about it in the comments below. Dislike the video if you think I did not do Paper Tigers justice, so I can do better for next time. Subscribe to help the channel grow. That's the best way you can support the channel, and I really appreciate all you new subscribers. And hit the notification bell so you'll know next time my new video is up, my next video is up. And that will be Wrath of Man, which will be a lot heavier, a lot darker. Amazing movie, but a lot heavier, a lot darker. So thank you very much for joining me and putting up with my ramble, but this movie deserved it. This movie deserved me gushing over it, gushing about it to you guys for as long as I could. I'm talking about everything I can regarding the movie without spoiling anything for you, but I highly recommend it. I give it an 8.5 out of 10. 8.5 out of 10. Watch it. Peace out. Thank you.